everyone. Here we are, back again in the car, and you know what that means. We are going to do another morning book report, and I have a lot to say about this book and also not very much to say about this book. Before we get into it, welcome back. I'm Caitlin, your geeky girlfriend, otherwise known as I'm More Than Mama now on Instagram. If you are already following me on Instagram, you may have been following that change or that shift in kind of niche. And I am posting all things mom fashion, mom fits, mom to-dos. I post a lot of Columbus content, restaurants, date night ideas, things like that. But I also do a lot of book reviews as well. And if you're new here, I am about 20-ish weeks postpartum with my first child, my sweet baby girl. And I did do a lot of reviews while I was on my maternity leave. So I reviewed several books while I was on my leave, and now we're back to work. We've been back to work for about 8 weeks or so, just shy of 2 months, and we are down to the last 10 literally days of the school year. And because the other 2 days, we have 12 days, but the other 2 days really are nothing days. Field day, and then even tomorrow on our campus is a big pep rally. So yeah. Anyway, overall, things postpartum have been going pretty good. I do have some content here on the channel about that. I'm going to be posting some more content in that band of genre, if you will, because there are some things that have happened recently that we've had some shifts. So I want to just update that because I'm a first-time mom, and I would, as a first-time mom, I'm trying to post content that other first-time moms like myself would maybe find interesting. So anyway, a little bit off topic this morning, but we are going to be talking about a book today by Janet Evanovich, and a little bit of background on why I chose this book. So I was supposed to host book club last month, and unfortunately circumstances kind of got in a lot of people's way. A lot of people ended up not being able to come, but the idea was that we would do kind of like an author roulette, and everybody would get assigned an author randomly and then have to read any book they wanted by that author. So my author that was gifted to me was Janet Evanovich. She is the author of the One for the Money book series about Stephanie Plum. There was a movie made about the first or maybe a couple of books in the series. I haven't read the books, so I don't know how closely the movie follows the books, but I have several of her books on my list, and it just so happened that I actually had one of her books on my bookshelf, and so that kind of fit into my challenge this year, which is to read more of the books that I already own. And so I was like, okay, well, I'll just start with, instead of getting something from the library when I have a book of hers already on my shelf, I was like, I'm just going to start with this one that I have on my shelf. Overall, it was a pretty short read. It was about 220 pages or so pretty short. Now, that being said, this book took me an absurd amount of time to read for how short it was, and also it was a very small book, so there wasn't a lot of text on the page, so it should have been a very quick read. And I apologize for the sun. I'm in the car a little bit earlier than normal because I'm trying a little bit earlier than I used to go in, but not as early as I have been some other times this year already, or since coming back from my leave. But anyway, it just gives me a natural glow. So this book was small, petite, but then it also was pretty short, and the amount of time it took me to read this book was a little bit embarrassing. But I did misplace the book for a solid 3 to 4 days. There was a period of a weekend where I was like, oh, where's my book? I want to read it because I'm getting close to being done with it, and I literally couldn't find it. Now, where it was on the floor underneath my daughter's swing. Literally walked by there probably 10 times and completely just overlooked it. But so my reading speed was affected by me misplacing the book, and I actually started another book in the midst of misplacing that one. Review coming soon. Now, the book that I read was Naughty Neighbor by Jana Ivanović, and as far as I can tell, this is kind of a one-off book. It doesn't belong to any other series, like the One for the Money series or anything like that. It kind of is a standalone, and she has several other standalones, like Manhunt and a couple of others. I didn't even know what genre Jana Ivanović was before reading, although I did know about the One for the Money books. And the One for the Money movie is kind of a detective, like, buddy romance, I guess. And so that's kind of what I was maybe expecting. I wasn't expecting it to be full romance. But I didn't know what to expect. And I did that on purpose. I didn't read any reviews. I didn't do any research about who she was as an author. The prelude to this book, again, this is Naughty Neighbor by Jana Ivanović, and the prelude makes you think that this book is going to be kind of spicy. And I was like, okay, great. This will be a nice, like, palate cleansing romance to get me, like, ready. I'm kind of ready for a thriller, to be honest. I've read a lot of, like, just novels and fiction, and I started the year heavy in romance with the Olivia Dades Spoiler Alert series, and I'm ready for, like, either a really, like, fast-paced, rompy rom-com romance or a thriller. Just something that's completely, like, something that really just is fast-paced and gets my blood boiling again, because I kind of am in a little bit of a reading slump where I'm not super motivated to read. Now, granted, I don't have as much time to read as I did 8 weeks ago. But also, and my daughter, she's more active now. She's an only child. We're spoiling her as we should. And you can't spoil a baby. But she wants to play and talk and do all these things, and try to interact with her. And obviously with working, I don't have a lot of energy. Usually, if I do have some downtime, I am using it to just scroll on social media, just to give myself a little bit of, like, mental break. But anyway, I am also in a little bit of a reading slump. Like, there hasn't really been a book this year that really has, like, captivated my attention, other than Everything, which I already reviewed here on the channel, which was actually a YA and something that was just really unexpected. And that's kind of the good thing about this ABC challenge that I'm doing, is it encourages me to really look at my bookshelf and really decide, like, oh, I've been wanting to read this book for a while. I'm going to go ahead and read it and see if it piques my attention and my interest without it being, so, like, niche in genre. So I am able to jump around a little bit. But anyway, I was kind of like, oh, this is going to be a spicy romance. It's going to be really easy to read because it's short. And that was not the case. I think I had a little bit of PTSD reading this book, to be honest, because the main character, Louisa, reminds me of a coworker that I had that I was not fond of, and I think that Louisa's energy and kind of her, at least how she is at home. Now, Louisa does work for, like, a congressman. They live in Washington, D.C. The whole story is set kind of in the outskirts of Washington, D.C. And she is, like, a personal assistant or a press secretary for a senator, a congressman, something at the beginning of the story. So, like, she has this really high profile, really professional job, but then how she is in her personal life and, like, when she's at home, it gives off, like, squirrely, just, like, neurotic. And it just reminded me, and I was picturing this coworker that I worked with a few years ago, that literally just thinking about her spikes my blood pressure. So I am not exaggerating. So I think that kind of set me off right away. And then the storyline / points of view in this book were so, like, one paragraph would be in Louisa's tone of voice and text, and then the next paragraph literally was in Pete's point of view. The whole thing is through like omnipotent third person, so the narrator is seeing all, all knowing, all seeing, and I think that's omnipotent third person. I need to refresh myself on my points of view, but it's been a long time since I taught that. But omnipotent is right. Yeah, I think that's right. All-knowing. The narrator is all-knowing, all-seeing, so you're getting his thoughts, her thoughts at the same time, not from the perspective of themselves, so not in the I first person. So that was confusing, and it read like how I pictured Louisa's mind probably worked, and maybe that was the idea, but it was like Louisa da 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 da, Pete da 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 da, like it would just switch. There was no warning, no rhyme or reason, and then there would be page breaks or paragraph breaks where I was like, okay, we're gonna switch, and then they would continue with the same point of view, or it would be like a totally different day, or a totally different, like, it just, I wrote in my Goodreads review, like, this book was the fastest moving slow burn I've ever read. Like, it was fast moving in that it was almost chaotic in the pacing, and then it was a slow burn because they started off with that spicy prelude, and then literally it took, I would say at least 50 to 60 pages, maybe not, maybe it was a little less than that. And slow burn, it's not even a slow burn romance, that's the thing. Like, I use the word slow burn almost metaphorically to be like, this was the least spicy, predicted spicy book. Like, the prelude was kind of spicy, and then to have like no spice at all throughout the whole rest of the book, or a spice that is comparable to things that I've read before. And I have a whole video on how I rate books in terms of spice. You can find that here in my channel. It's called Let's Talk About, and then I put pepper emojis. So if you're interested, I will try and tag that video down here below. I'm not sure how to do that exactly, but I will try and figure that out. But you can check that out, because I have read some decently spicy books that, for me, like, in order for a book to be like 5 spice, 5 pepper, 5 hot on the hot scale, there has to be like a lot of like kinky fetish stuff, okay? And because normal intercourse, whatever word you want to insert, no pun intended, or maybe pun intended, whatever word you want to use, if it's closed door, even if it's open door, it has to be pretty out there for me to say, oh my gosh, that was really, really spicy. Backdoor entry is up there. But like regular, anything that's digital, oral, anything like that it has to be written in a very, like, there has to be a lot of tension and a lot of build-up, and it really comes down to how it's written for me, less about what is being depicted on the page. With that being said, this is completely closed door, with the exception of them mentioning, like, taking off each other's clothes. And she being Louisa, mentions Pete's member a few times in innuendo language. She never comes right out and says it. She never uses the terminology in any capacity, regular, natural, or sexual terminology. And I just felt like this book is set up enemies to lovers. But then it skips the entire tension, which is supposed to be enemies to lovers. Like, I love enemies to lovers romance, don't get me wrong. This did not meet that criteria, in my opinion. I felt like these two characters, they weren't actually enemies. Like, I feel like she knew from the minute that she saw him for the first time that she was going to get with him, and she tried to hate him, and it just did not work in terms of the pace. Again, the pacing of the book is my biggest issue here with this novel, because I felt like everything was moving so fast-paced. It was so chaotic, and yet I almost didn't understand what was happening. But at the same time, it was like, oh, now they're, in a relationship and they want to get married, but yet I feel like they just were hating each other yesterday and they didn't know each other. Like, what? And then also there's like this side storyline of them trying to like solve this mystery of who broke into Pete's house, and you never really get a resolution. You do, but it's like so slapped together that it's like, oh yeah, it was this, and this is where the pig came from, and yeah, okay, let's go move to California. What? And I'm giving a little bit of the book away because I feel like it's almost hard not to, because if I don't give a little bit of this plot away, I literally would have nothing to tell you in terms of this book. And so that's another reason why it took me what felt like forever to read this book, was I felt like it was not sort of sequential. It wasn't, the build-up was off, the pacing was off. I gave it 2 stars because one felt a little bit, I reserve 1 stars for books that I don't finish or that I absolutely hated in some way. Like they talk about something that they glorify something that I don't like. Something like that. So 1 felt too harsh, and like, who's gonna know, right? I don't have that many followers, I don't have that many people here, but still, I try to reserve 1 stars for things that like I said, I either don't finish or contemplated multiple times not finishing, which, to be fair, I did do that with this book. I very well could have given this book 1 star because I genuinely was like, what? Huh? But I decided to be nice and give it 2 stars. 2 for me, and I have a whole video on this too, my book rating system. 2 stars for me is it was okay. It was okay. 3 stars for me is it was good. 4 stars is it was great, but it was lacking 1 small detail that really puts it over the edge. And then 5 stars is no notes. 5 stars is this book was enjoyable. It was great. I liked the pacing. I liked the characters. There was strong development. I felt a part of the story. That's what gets me to 5 stars. Like if I have a hard time separating myself from this book and the feelings and emotions that I have while reading the book, that's a 5-star book for me. And this one was not it. Would I read, the question always becomes, would I read something else by Jana Ivanović? Like maybe this was just one of her earlier novels or something, and she was still getting her feet under her. Maybe something else would be better. Would I give her another chance? Probably. Is it going to be anytime soon or this year? Also probably not. There are multiple reasons for that. 1, I didn't like this book very much. 2, I have a lot of other authors and things that I'm trying to get through this year. And I am doing my ABC challenge, which this one does count for my letter N book. And I kind of jumped around. I went from E, and I've already read an F book, to now letter N. And the girl, so I'm now back to G. But I also haven't read a letter D book yet, so there's that. But yeah, so I've kind of been jumping around with the ABC challenge. But like I said, this one is letter N. I have lost count of how many books I've read so far this year. I want to say this book was number 10. But yeah, so if you have read Jana Ivanović, please put in the comments your favorite book by her, because if I consider reading her again, I'm definitely going to want to try something else. I feel like if I were to read her again, I would definitely try One for the Money, and those Stephanie Plum books. I like a good detective story, so I'm not saying that I wouldn't enjoy maybe something else that she has written. This one, like I said, just was not it for me. So drop in the comments your favorite Jana Ivanović books, because I may consider reading her again sometime. Also, let me know if you've read this one and your thoughts. If you have read this one and you thought it was great, you can just go ahead and dislike this video. If you've read this one and you thought it was the same, like you didn't like it either, then go ahead and like this video. And yeah, we are approaching our destination, which if you've been watching this series for a while, you know that the destination is work. And so we are approaching our destination and we are going to be parking and getting started with our day. But thank you all so much for being here. Thank you for watching. And like I said, drop in the comments those Janet Evanovich books that I should try. Drop in the comments what you thought of this one if you've read this one, and then stay tuned for more books, book reviews this year. I have started my next book already, and so we are going to be reviewing that one here soon, whenever we finish it. And this one is already off to a much better start. I'm already almost 100 pages in, and I've only dedicated a couple days of reading to it. So stay tuned for all of that. Keep watching for more book reviews, more mom content, first time mom content, all the things. Thank you all so much for being here. Thank you for watching. Have a great day. Have a great Mother's Day weekend.